Welcome to Modern Leadership Live, where we're creating collaborative conversations to connect our company culture and our world's community. Today, I'm joined by Ron Rosenzweig, and he is the father of two daughters. He brought two tech companies to IPO. And at this point in his life, he's devoting himself to mentorship. So I'm so grateful to have you, Ron. I know you as somebody who really cares about the environment and someone who's always thinking outside the box. So welcome.
Glad to be here.
Appreciate you taking time out of your schedule as you're supporting the whole community with your wisdom. Today, I would love to hear you talk a little bit about what do you think the world needs more now than ever as it relates to leadership?
Well, I think the biggest thing is we're living in a time of great change. And I think what's important is no matter what you're trying to do, to be mindful of the fact that change is all around you and may be happening, and it may be either opportunities for you or it may be threats to you. And you have to be, careful to know which ones, where are you on that stage? Are you being disrupted or are you the disruptor? So I think that's the key, is that it's always changing. You always have to be aware of it. Pandemic, classic example, is both a huge threat and a huge opportunity. So for what we're doing now, talking online, we probably before the pandemic would be doing it around a coffee table someplace and chatting in person, but we're not. We're using this, and now everybody wants to do it. Not to be sad or maudlin, but unfortunately, this week I lost a brother to Alzheimer's, and for a lot of years. And we had a memorial service on Wednesday for like 80 people from all around the country. Would have been unheard of 6 months ago. It was better than going to a temple or someplace to do it with surrounded by a lot of people, because everybody, you can hear the person talk, there's a lot of intimacy that comes out of it. Just another example of how the changes are changing the whole way that we're living.
And it sounds like what you're saying is the best leaders they're aware enough to see what changes are going on. Am I being the leader of that change? Or when a change occurs, am I looking for the best, the opportunity in it? Is that right?
Absolutely. Let it flow. Be open to new ideas and new thoughts that are floating, that are happening because of changing environment, changing competition, all sorts of stuff. And I think that's really the key. I mean, certainly one of the things that's very happening in this world right now is diversity. Mm-hmm. And there are many people that looked at diversity as reducing or inhibiting the way that you did things, instead of looking at it as this is a way to make my company more vibrant by having all different kinds of views coming into the company, and embrace it as opposed to rejecting it. So it's just another way to look at this whole mix of ideas and changes that are happening. And whether you're starting a business, have a business, thinking about doing a business, you have to be mindful of all of those things, because they're happening all the time. When I started my second company, I wrote a business plan every year. And every business plan was different than the last one. And mainly because the last one failed. So, so I had to.
Wow, I think a lot of people are going to be encouraged by that. Like, you took companies from scratch to IPO, and you're saying you wrote a business plan every year, and you did it because most of it failed.
Exactly.
But you wrote it anyway.
Right.
I'm hearing fortitude. I'm hearing focus. I'm hearing, commitment. All those things, right? Like, still going back to the drawing board and still staying focused on the mission. Now, I think you addressed this, like the old paradigms that get in the way of people embracing change, as you're talking about it. And thinking about, am I the industry disruptor, or am I going to be disrupted by a smaller entrepreneurial company who can, beat things faster than me, right? So what gets in the way of people thinking about change being a tool that they could use to support furthering their business?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest mistakes that I made, and I've had success, so I can talk about the things that were not, was not paying attention to competitive technologies that came into my space, and thinking that either they were too expensive or would take too long for them to come in, or I've got a whole team now that's really good at this, and I want to exploit that as much as I can, and the rest of it, will probably in my lifetime won't be effective. My first company I sold because of new technologies. They were coming from Japan. They had much more resources than we had.
So you have to know when to get out. You have to have a good transition plan and know when's it time to sell.
Exactly. There's never a completely right answer. I mean, there's always whether I should have sold the first company or toughed it out. I will never know. I know at some point I just made a decision that it was time to move on to something else. And when I moved on to something else, I was starting something that was built around a certain set of ideas, and I went to raise money for it. And the person said, "I've got a lot of money, and you have a good track record and a good background, but I don't want to do what you want to do. I want to do this."
Okay.
And I said, "Well, let me think about that." And I came back to him. I said, "We could do that." And that's what we built the second company around.
So you were adaptable. You had an assertion of a purpose and a plan, and you were also able to receive feedback and create something anew, co-create, basically collaborate.
Right. I mean, there's a lot of things that lead to success. I mean, you have this idea, there's execution, there's resources, there's all these factors. They all have to come into play at some level in order to have a success. And you don't always know what they are. So you want to be open to what those different opportunities are. My background was chemical engineering, and which is very process driven. And for me, starting a company was really about a process, not a product. If I found a product and the process allowed that product to come forth, then we did. If I saw another product that could be made with a similar process, or change it or tweak it, do something else, then we go in that direction. And so it's and that led to, for a brief moment, having a market value of $3 billion. And so and when I started the company, that was never in my mind.
Any bold predictions for what you would see as modern leadership in the future?
It's the world is very different than the world that I came up in. It's very different. So, my mantra is that there's always change, and you should be open to change, and you should keep changing your plan. Don't feel bad if your first business plan didn't work, because usually it doesn't. Think about why didn't it work, and what is the thing that I can do to make it better? What's the new resource? Do I need different people? Do I need to go after a different market? So, for instance, in my second company, we were making chips for fiber optics and other things, and along came something called a mobile phone. And we looked at it and we said, I think this technology we have will work really well in a mobile phone. And then we reached out to the mobile phone, and 3 years later, it was 80% of our business. And we were making things for satellite TV. And 3 years after that, we weren't. We were making things for mobile phones, which was a market that was like 100 times larger.
Wow. So always thinking about other industries and how is what I'm doing can apply to other industries. I love that.
Correct.
Think about the hospitality industry. We're here in South Florida, and there's a lot of people who were laid off by Carnival Cruise Line. And now they're looking for other industries, and construction obviously is booming. So we actually help a local organizations hire, and we suggested for a lot of their frontline employees, they actually hire people from Carnival Cruise Lines to support them with the customer experience, something really construction companies never really thought about. The construction companies can leverage that and be industry disruptors, right? So it's fantastic. All right. Well, thank you so much, Ron, for joining us today. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. Thank you for taking the time to learn everything you did. And thank you for not keeping it to yourself. You're definitely appreciated. And we really are glad you're here.
Well, great. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you, Ron.
And glad I could be helpful.